Hello and welcome to the final video dealing with the Imperial Navy. In this one we're going to go over some very basic strategy and tactics in setting up your fleet and what to do before going into a battle and at the beginning of a battle. So my particular strategy revolves around macros as my primary weapon source. So you'll don't have much of a choice at the light cruiser, but at the cruiser level where you have a bit more choice, I've gone a Dominator which has just macro batteries, the Lunar which has a split between Lunar and Lance batteries, and the Gothic which has Lance batteries. Now this goes obviously against what I originally said with me being primary, but you need something for when you come up against those heavy armor fleets like Space Marines. It can also be quite useful against Orcs. And then with the Overlords and the Retribution in the battle cruiser and battleship slots respectively, I have plasma macro batteries, so extra range, that little bit extra damage. They are quite good. They also come with lance turrets on top, providing again that little bit of extra punch against armor. So the thing you want to think about even before you go into battle is the skills and upgrades you want to give your ships. So down the bottom here, because the light cruisers are going to be some of the ships closer to the enemy, I've given them the emergency capacitor to just help their shields recharge quicker. I've also extended their shields. For the Dauntless Mark IIs, I've given them improved torpedo speed. For the normal Dauntlesses, maneuvering thrusters, they're all also going to end up with the Voss pattern shield. So other upgrades I'd consider for these guys: belt armor. I just really like belt armor. I find it very useful. Essentially your first critical damage is ignored. This is just all round useful. The other ones to consider for them, if you want to run them even closer at 3000, you could run with the armor piercing ammunition. If I was going to do that, I'd probably also give them the Mazoa pattern drive, which increases their speed, allowing them to stay inside of that range more easily, as at 188 speed, they're not the fastest ships around, and a lot of other races can outrun them. Especially those that it's useful against, as the Space Marines are actually faster than the Imperial Navy. So that's just a few of the ones that I definitely consider, along with the advanced cogitator linkages, as with that increase to your special orders duration, it's all useful. But this is going to depend on exactly how you want to use them, so I'll leave that up to you for final call. Same here, you have a few other choices. You could have just given them supercharged. I prefer the emergency capacitors, especially as I know I'm going to be giving them that additional void shield. So for cruisers, you'll note that most of my cruisers are fitted the same. So the Dominator and Lunar, which will run at a 6000 range, I fitted for support with the void shield transfer. This will just help keep the shields up on all my other ships. And the recon beacon. So this is particularly useful against Chaos, Eldar to an extent, even Orcs can occasionally. You will often come fitted with the Augur Disruptor. Essentially Chaos in particular, you chuck this on one of their ships, they can't hide, and they really like to sit at long range and hide, whether it's through running silent or the Zench favor. This just really negates that effect. So I like to make sure I have at least one in my fleet at all times. You'll notice the Gothic's a little different in that it comes with the Augur probe. This is because I've actually given it the 3000 unit upgrade on its lances so that it can fire at longer range. Because of that, I just want the Augur probe, as I'm now shooting outside of my actual sight range, even if I was to give it the improved Augur array, which it probably will end up with anyhow. The other thing to keep in mind is if you are going to have Lancers as your primary weapon, I would always go with Disruption Overcharge. You just really need to have that extra damage against shields with Lancers, as their base damage against them is really low. So for both the battle cruisers and the battleship, as I tend to use these as my admiral ship, I only have either or, I always go with Rally. Just helps keep the other ships going. And when it comes to favors, I will eventually put the Imperial Navy favor on them so that they themselves will never actually run. I've also just decided to give them a bit more damage with the plasma bomb. And again, because they're a longer range ship, because of those plasma macros and the lance turrets, I've given them Auger Probe to hopefully make sure they can keep things going. And the battleship's extra one, I've given it the enhanced induction cells. This allows me to burn my all ahead full or my high energy turns, use them more often if needed, and then just auto refill. It's a slow ship. It may require me to burn for longer, and so I just keep it going. Right, so that's how I've set up. One of the other ways to set up Imperial Navy is in your cruiser, battle cruiser and battleship slots. You can actually have a decent amount of ordnance, and you could go with an ordnance heavy. If you're going to go ordnance on your ship, I would always take automated refueling systems. This increases how often they're coming out, and that means more damage. Other than that, it's going to be very similar to your other long range setups. So we're going to go into a battle. Right, so here's where you need to start thinking about more stuff. So obviously, first thing, you've got your fleet points. That's obviously going to dictate how many ships you can take. We've got our mission, Cruiser Clash, so we're just going to be trying to kill each other. Nothing special there. Don't really need to think about it too much. Roll with Cruiser Clash anyhow, doesn't matter. With things like Assassination, or pretty much any of the others really, it matters. It's going to change what ships you pick and roles you want to believe you need to fill that way. Right, we're going up against Eldar, so they're going to get in close, but they don't have high armor, so I don't really need to rely on my Lancers as much, so the Gothic's not going to be particularly useful in this case. So the problem with Eldar as Imperial Navy is that they are faster, more maneuverable, and can be really hard to shake once they get in behind you. You really need to try and pay attention to that. If they get in behind you, you want to be shooting that ship, because you want to take it out before it takes out whatever ship is sitting behind it. They can do it very quickly once they're sitting behind another ship. Right, so 700 points, so I'm going to take my battleship. Like I said, I don't run battleships and battle cruisers. I tend to go straight from battleship to cruisers. I'm going to take the Dominator. I'm going to take the Luna. It leaves me with enough points for one of my light cruisers, so I'm going to go here with a Dauntless Mark II because I don't need that lance. And then I'm just going to go with the Firestorm as I've upgraded it. Right. We get our lovely intro flyby, focusing primarily on your Admiral ship. And then we come to our placement. So always have a quick scan of the battlefield, and you want to see what's going to be beneficial to you, what's going to be beneficial to the enemy. So a quick look here, I can see a number of gas clouds, most of them small ones, so that's not too bad. They're not going to be able to hide too easily. There's an asteroid cluster here. There's also one in my deployment zone. That one shouldn't come into play. And then we've got a structure here. So the structure just essentially is impassable terrain. They are good at stopping torpedoes, so you can hide behind them. Any weapon really. They can't shoot through it. They have to come around to get at you. Just something to keep in mind. So I think I'm going to start here, try and force the relatively low health Eldar to travel through this asteroid field. If they don't have the upgrade, they're going to be taking damage, and they don't have a lot of hull points to start with. Right. So, placement of ships. My battleship is a long-range ship. I'm going to have it sitting out at 12. Admittedly, with Eldar, they're probably going to get in close and be able to stay there, but I want to at least try and start out at range. So I'm just going to auto several of my abilities and my emergency repairs. So emergency repairs is just so I don't have to worry about if I miss a ship going to low health, it'll hopefully kick in automatically and save it. Most of these, they're just going to be used when I want them to be used anyhow. It just saves me some microing. For Auger Probe, I'll always fire the first one manually and then switch it to auto after that. So I'm just going to place these ahead. Now with the Nova Cannon, unlike the Torps, which you'll notice I didn't auto, I've just found it's easier to auto. It pretty much shoots the same as I'm going to shoot, and with its randomness, it doesn't really make much of a difference. Whereas Torps, often the AI doesn't think about hitting its own ships, so it'll fire even though you might hit your own ships. This can be bad in some situations where you might have a low health ship that's going to get hit and taken out by your own torpedoes. Alright, so that's everything set up. I always start off by just sending stuff forward. I just want stuff on the move from the get-go, essentially. Right, let's have a quick look at the mini-map. Okay, so we can see here that I have six ships to destroy, but only 3 showing up on the mini-map. This would suggest to me that they have a couple of ships running silent.
Yes, Admiral.
So I'm just going to try and reveal the closest ship to me, and it's as simple as that.
Awaiting orders
at that actual ship. So I haven't targeted it yet, because it's what that'll do is start converging them towards each other, and I could have issues with them running into each other. So I want to save that
ship ready.
Closer. So let's start having a look here at the Torps. So that's going to hit.
Your orders.
And yep. Well. Luckily it didn't do any real damage.
Enemy ship sighted.
I feel it is some sort of
ship
bug.
ready.
Alrighty.
For the Emperor. Awaiting orders. Yes, Admiral. Enemy ship sighted.
The other ships. Figured they do that. That's fine.
At your command.
Do that. And they should fly by in a second.
Enemy ship sighted.
Right, I also wanted to try and target some submarines.
Enemy ship sighted! Activating tactical cogitators.
Slow down the game so that you can go through and select stuff that you need, change targets, do all of that. So with his hollow field down, I'm actually going to keep shooting at him for now, but I will switch targets in a second to one of these smaller ships to try and get them off the field.
Resuming normal functions.
Right, and this is what I said you want to keep an eye on. This guy's
acquiring new vector.
Behind him and stay there.
We've lost an escort ship.
I
Cruising speed set. At your command.
And that battleship is just not being able to get anywhere near.
Yes, Admiral.
Getting away from me.
Damaged teams begin repairs now! Our boarders have caused internal damage!
Selected. Right.
Target
let's fire
locked
on that.
in! Lock on target! Lightning strike successful! Your orders?
Right, and they're just decided to run.
Engines hot!
And there we go. That is all she wrote. So, as you can see there with Eldar, trying to get them trapped, even amongst their own ships, is good because it gets their hollow fields down because they're not moving and you're able to blow them up. All the better. Also, paying attention to if one of their ships gets behind yours, you need to do that high energy turn to make sure they don't stay there, because they stay there, that ship will die. So it's all about trying to slow them down, keep their movement to a minimum, which lowers their hollow fields, which means you can do damage better. You can just apply that damage better. For most others, there's no real massive difference to tactics. You want to circle them, you want to shoot at them, you're going to do damage. It's as simple as that. So that's pretty much it for our base. Imperial Navy is fairly simple. See the enemy, focus fire with all your ships, and blow them up. Like I said, my personal preference is to start with the smaller ships first, so I can just try and chew through as many ships as possible to start with, get that damage off the field, and deal with the larger ships last. Now, the other benefit of dealing with the smaller ships first is they're the ones, especially with Eldar, that are most likely to prove difficult for your larger ships to take out because they can outmaneuver them. So one thing to keep in mind, if they can outmaneuver your larger ship well enough, you may not be able to damage them while they can damage you. Also, against certain opponents, you might lose your smaller ships, the ones best able to stop their fast small ships. If that happens, you could end up having to run with your bigger ship simply because you can't apply damage. So these are things you need to keep in mind, is target priority. Once you have that sorted, like I said, focus fire, enemy dies, move on to the next. Also, make sure that you are choosing subsystems. In a lot of cases, your generator is going to be your first target. Now, in saying that, with orcs, I'll generally go after their deck first, because blowing up their deck actually increases the chance of them running, and orcs already have a higher than normal chance of running. So this means that you could just win the battle, and I have done it, by cascading essentially the orc fleet. You blow up some of their smaller escort ships which won't run anyhow, you do some damage to one of the bigger ships, get it to its 30% health, and then all of a sudden you'll see every single one of their ships just light up and start running for the warp. So you'll destroy those escort ships, you'll do that damage to one of the larger ships, it'll start to run, next thing you know all the others will follow suit, and you've won the battle. This is particularly useful against orcs as a tactic, just because they have that higher chance of running, and realistically long battles with them can be rough as they have high health, and once they're in close they can be doing large amounts of damage. Right, that's all I have for the Imperial Navy. If you would like to see some more advanced tactics, feel free to leave comments asking for specifics or particular types of tactics you'd like to see me try. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this series covering the Imperial Navy. I do plan to do more, covering each of the races in turn. Thank you, and I hope you join me for future videos.